The following video is intended for mature audiences. It contains horror elements, adult themes, and language that might not be suitable for younger viewers. The last carol. Frost crept across my office window as I translated the final page of my mother's grimoire. 25 years of running, and here I sat in Clausville again. My research grant a convenient excuse to investigate the Christmas murders. Papers plastered my walls, police reports, newspaper clippings, church records dating back to 1847. All were pointing to a pattern I'd witnessed firsthand as a child. My fingers traced the grimoire's worn leather binding, feeling the protective runes my ancestors had carved into its spine. The book had survived centuries of horror, passed down through generations of those who kept watch against things that hungered in the dark. They came from my father first. I watched from the stairs, 7 years old, clutching my stuffed reindeer as the carolers circled him. Their voices pierced the December air like icicles, a perfect harmony that made reality shiver. Mrs. Winters, my Sunday school teacher, led them in her Victorian dress, her smile stretched too wide as they sang, "God rest you merry gentlemen," in frequencies that cracked our windows and made blood trickle from my nose. The other carolers I recognized too, Mr. Peterson from the post office, Ms. Clark who taught piano, and Dr. Hammond who treated my winter colds. All wore period costumes that seemed to shift and flow in the candlelight, their faces masks of festive joy that disguised an unimaginable evil. Dad knew what they were, a folklorist specializing in winter rituals. He'd spent years researching Clausville's dark history. He'd discovered the town's true founding, not by pious settlers seeking religious freedom, but cultists who'd fled Europe after bargaining with something ancient and vast, something that hungered for human voices and had followed them across the ocean, drawn by their songs of devotion. The entity they worshipped was older than Christmas itself, a thing that had worn many names throughout history. The winter singer, the voice thief, the choir master. Each Christmas Eve, it demanded a sacrifice wrapped in carols and candy canes, sealed with innocent blood. His research journals, which I'd studied obsessively since returning, told the story. In 1847, a group of European cultists arrived in America, claiming to be seeking religious freedom. They founded Clausville in a valley where the winter winds made strange music through the trees. Their leader, Edward Winters, had promised them protection from the harsh New World in exchange for their devotion to an ancient power. They built their church with unusual acoustic properties, its architecture designed to amplify and channel certain frequencies. The town prospered, protected from harsh winters and disease, but each Christmas Eve, someone would vanish. Their disappearances were always accompanied by beautiful singing. "Your turn to join the choir, Thomas," they sang. Dad fought as they surrounded him. His academic theories proved horrifyingly real. They held him down, their fingers elongated into pale, bony restraints. Mrs. Winters, Edward's own descendant, pressed a sprig of poisoned holly between his lips, her own mouth opening far wider than human anatomy should allow. Every voice lifts the song. Every song feeds the choir. The choir must grow. What emerged from his throat wasn't human. Mom covered my eyes, but the sounds, wet, ripping, triumphant, haunted my nightmares for decades. When the police arrived, they found only scattered sheet music written in symbols that hurt to look at, and dark stains that tests would later show contained crystallized vocal cord tissue. The official report cited animal attack, the same explanation given for every Christmas Eve death in Clausville's history. Mom protected us with old magic passed down through generations. Her family had always known about things like this. They were grimoire keepers, magical archivists who documented supernatural threats and the means to combat them. Our home became a fortress, words carved into door frames using chisels blessed by 13 different faiths. crosses woven from pine needles soaked in holy water collected from churches across Europe, circles of salt around our beds mixed with crushed iron and graveyard dirt. She taught me our family's true heritage and about the power in our blood. For 18 years, we survived the carolers' attempts to claim us, moving from town to town, never staying long enough for them to track us. The grimoire taught me about our family's role. We weren't just record keepers. We were guardians against ancient powers that fed on humanity's voice, creativity, and song. Our bloodline carried a unique resonance, a magical frequency that could disrupt supernatural harmonies. This made us both valuable and dangerous to things like the entity that ruled Clausville. They needed our voices to complete their chorus, but our power could also dismantle them if wielded correctly. Then Mom's voice began to fail. Cancer, the doctor said, but they couldn't explain the frost patterns that formed in her throat during examinations, or why her screams during chemotherapy harmonized perfectly with distant church bells. Their instruments showed crystalline growths where tumors should be, structures that seemed to vibrate with impossible frequencies. Her final letter told another truth. The song is killing me from inside. I've held them off, but they're learning the true carol, the complete version of their master's song. If they finish it, the barrier between worlds will shatter. You're the last one who can stop them. Come home. The grimoire will show you how. I returned too late. I found her body surrounded by holly branches, her throat bulging with something still trying to claw its way out. Her grimoire lay open beside her, its pages containing generations of warnings and one final spell written in her blood. In death, her face held an expression of fierce triumph. She'd taken something vital from them with her last breath, corrupted a keynote in their true carol. Without it, they couldn't complete their song. But they had gained something too, knowledge of how to break our family's protections. The carolers were getting stronger. Each victim's voice added to their chorus, strengthening the entity they served. My research revealed more victims than I'd imagined. Children vanishing during Christmas pageants were found weeks later with their vocal cords missing and strange symbols carved into their frozen tongues. Choir members were discovered in practice rooms, their throats crystallized into delicate sculptures that hummed in frequencies that drove listeners mad. Whole families went silent overnight, their homes filled with frost patterns that formed musical notes in ancient languages. The patterns spread beyond Clausville, reports of similar incidents across the country, carol groups that sang too beautifully, Christmas concerts that left audiences changed. The entity's hunger was growing, and its servants were learning to spread their influence through modern means, viral Christmas videos, popular carol arrangements that contained hidden frequencies, and choir competitions that served as hunting grounds. Tonight was Christmas Eve. I'd prepared Mom's study according to her final instructions. Protective circles drawn in blessed ink, harvested from sacred texts, windows lined with iron filings from church bells, and surveillance cameras modified to capture supernatural frequencies. The grimoire's countersong required a sacrifice. My blood, my voice, my connection to our family's power. But Mom's final notes revealed a twist. The spell could turn the entity's hunger back on itself, using the stolen voices as a weapon. The first carol drifted through my window at midnight. Silent night, twisted into geometries that made my teeth ache and my vision blur. Through frost-glazed glass, I watched them approach. Dozens of carolers in period dress, candles casting shadows that moved independently of their flames. Mrs. Winters hadn't aged a day in 25 years, though the skin around her too wide smile looked stretched to breaking. Behind her came others, faces I recognized from missing person reports, bodies animated by stolen voices. "Welcome home, little grimoire," they sang. "We've saved you a place in the chorus. Your mother tried so hard to protect you, but her voice rings so sweetly in our choir now. Listen, can you hear her solo?" Their voices harmonized in patterns that distorted space, weaving the true carol note by note. Reality rippled around them like heat waves as the barrier between worlds thinned. Behind their human masks, something else gazed hungrily through their eyes, something vast and cold and endlessly hungry. The entity they served was almost here, drawn by their song like a spider feeling web vibrations. I opened Mom's grimoire to her final spell and began to sing. Power surged through the wards, making the old protections blaze like magnesium flares. The carolers' song rose to a glass-shattering pitch as their true forms emerged. Throats distending, jaws unhinging to reveal nests of crystalline vocal cords that caught and reflected candlelight in nauseating patterns. Their bodies twisted into impossible shapes as the entity's influence manifested fully. Mrs. Winters burst through my door in a shower of splintered wood and broken wards, her face stretched into impossible angles, skin splitting to reveal the crystalline structure beneath. Where her heart should have been, a cluster of frozen vocal cords pulsed with stolen songs. "Your bloodline ends tonight. The true carol must be completed." "Wrong note," I snarled and sang the countersong's final verse. The spell ripped through their chorus like a razor through silk, carrying my mother's corrupted note into their perfect harmony. Their bodies convulsed as the stolen voices fought to escape. The entity emerged, a writhing mass of frozen sound and hungry frequencies, beautiful and terrible in its partially manifested form. It attempted to possess me, to add my voice to its collection. I let it in, felt it freeze my blood and crystallize my throat. Then I changed the key. The countersong turned the entity's hunger back on itself. The carolers collapsed like empty costumes as their stolen voices were devoured. Through the broken windows, I watched Clausville's Christmas lights go dark one by one. The ancient hunger that had fed on our town for generations consumed itself in a cascade of discordant notes that made reality twist and fold like origami. Silence fell. I stood alone in the wreckage of Mom's study, blood freezing on my lips as I wrote the final entry in our family's grimoire. The price of victory was my voice, frozen forever in mid-song, transformed into crystals that hummed with frequencies just beyond human hearing. But I had won. The entity was gone, and its centuries-long song finally ended. I should have burned the book, should have salted the ashes and walked away. But a researcher's curiosity made me keep it, study it, try to understand what the entity had been and what my family's magic had done to stop it. There were other threats out there, other songs that needed to be silenced. Last week I heard singing outside my window, new voices learning old songs. The entity was gone, but its hunger lived on in the carol itself, a mimetic infection spreading through sheet music and choir practices. The music was spreading, teaching itself to new choirs, seeking hosts for a hunger that could never truly die. In my research, I'd found references to other grimoire families and other bloodlines with their own songs of power. Perhaps it was time to find them. I typed this warning because I can no longer speak it. Watch your children when carolers come. Listen carefully to their songs, and if the harmony sounds wrong, just slightly wrong, don't invite them in. Don't let them teach your children their carols. Don't let them spread their music. They're always seeking new voices for their choir, and I've learned there are far worse things than silence. In the margins of the grimoire, I've begun documenting new patterns. Other towns with two perfect church choirs. Shopping malls where the Christmas music makes shoppers pause too long, swaying to rhythms they can't quite hear. Children's pageants where the songs sound a little too beautiful, a little too harmonious. The entity may be gone, but its hunger lives on, teaching itself to new voices, spreading through radio waves and streaming services. The carol is evolving, adapting to the modern world. And somewhere out there, other grimoire keepers are fighting their own battles against the things that steal our songs. I may have lost my voice, but I haven't lost my purpose. The grimoire's pages still have space for new warnings, new spells, and new ways to fight back. After all, every song must end eventually, even the ones that want to sing forever. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. See you next time. Thank you for watching.